Good afternoon. I am Pastor MP, and this is the Wednesday edition of the St. Mark Spark. Today is Wednesday, August the 19th. This afternoon, we are in the book of John for the gospel reading. And this story may be or is probably familiar to you. It's the feeding of the masses, the one where Jesus is given several fish and several loaves of bread, and the entire crowd that is around them, thousands upon thousands, are fed, and there's plenty left over. Something that struck me as I was reading this really didn't have anything to do with the feeding of the masses, but it had to do with, or has to do with, what Jesus did just before the crowds came, and then after the crowds, just before the crowds were going to leave, they were going to come and get him. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but hear now the word of the Lord in John chapter 6, verses 1 through 15. Sometime later, Jesus crossed over to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, that is, Lake Tiberias. And a huge crowd followed him, impressed by the sign he gave by healing sick people. Jesus climbed the hillside and sat down there with his disciples. It was shortly before the Jewish feast of Passover. Looking up, Jesus saw the crowd approaching and said to Philip, "Where can we buy some bread for these people to eat?" Jesus knew very well what he was going to do, but asked this to test Philip's response. And Philip answered, "Not even with 200 days' wages could we buy enough loaves to give each of them a mouthful." One of the disciples, Simon Peter's brother Andrew, said, "Well, there's a small boy here with 5 barley loaves and 2 dried fish. But what good is that for so many people?" Jesus said to them, "Make the people sit down." There was plenty of grass there, and as many as 5,000 families sat down. Then Jesus took the loaves, gave thanks, and gave them out to all who were sitting there. He did the same with the fish, giving out as much as they could eat. When the people had eaten their fill, Jesus said to the disciples, "Gather up the leftover pieces so that nothing gets wasted." So they picked them up and filled 12 baskets with scraps left over from the 5 barley loaves. The people, seeing this sign that Jesus had performed, said, "Surely this is the prophet who has come into the world." Seeing that they were about to come and carry him off, to crown him as a ruler, Jesus escaped into the hills alone. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Just for your information, I am reading out of the Inclusive Bible, the first egalitarian translation. It is as it is described, is an inclusive language Bible, free of gender bias in the way that it presents the text. So the thing that caught me is that at the very beginning of this text, Jesus is crossing over the lake. He's crossing over to get away by himself, it seems. At the end of the passage, he is also running from the crowd before they come and grab him and take him away to crown him as an earthly king. And it says that he went away by himself to pray. Now, this certainly isn't the only time in the Bible, in the Gospels, that it talks about Jesus getting away by himself to pray. I mean, Jesus goes into the garden and he takes 3 of the disciples with him, and he goes up a little ways away and he prays by himself to be with God, by himself in prayer. And he comes back, and of course, in this story, the disciples are asleep, and he chides them for falling asleep. And he does this 3 separate times, but he gets himself away. There's another story in the Bible where the disciples are up and they are looking for Jesus. They don't know where he's gone. It's early in the morning, and Jesus is nowhere to be found. He's out by himself praying. He's spending time with God. Now, one of the aspects of this is that he is definitely away spending time with God. He's away by himself, where he can be away from the crowds, be away from other people, and he can focus on his relationship with God alone in prayer. And it made me think about, why did he do this? And I wonder if it wasn't, one of the aspects of this wasn't that he needed to get away to recharge, that the people that were around him, the activity that was around him, were sucking energy out of him, and he needed to be away by himself in order to recharge, to build his energy back up, his spiritual, mental, emotional, and even physical energy. And oftentimes it's nice for us to be able to get away from the busyness of our lives, to get away from the daily to-do list, the normal things, the pre-COVID, running kids to school, running ourselves to work, picking up the extra tasks that go along with a non-restricted, open life. But things have changed for many of us, and we don't have that busy schedule anymore. And we are all staying quarantined. We are all getting away from the busy life all the time. And that has the opposite effect at this point for many of us, where that getting away is just been too much. We are antsy. We want to get out and be doing things with people. We want to have some activity in our life. And we know that it's not safe to do many of the things we used to do. Just a few days ago, I did meet up with Letitia, our children's ministry director, for a socially distanced, safe, outdoor patio lunch at the bread company. And it felt really, really good to be out doing something normal, as I would classify it for my life. Having a face-to-face with someone at a good, safe social distance, outside on a patio with the breeze. The area was devoid of people for the most part, and so it did feel very safe. And that time recharged me. It re-energized me. I felt a lightness in my step as the day went, as I walked away from my table back to my car. And so I wonder if there are some things in our lives that we can be intentional about while staying safe, while staying socially distanced, while protecting ourselves and others, to do this recharge, to plug ourselves back into the life energy that God has provided us in this beautiful earth that we live in this beautiful church community that we're a part of. I've seen some things happening this week. In the last couple of weeks, we're gathering for Friday morning stroll here at the church at 6 a.m. So there's some face-to-face time and some energy being spent rebuilding our muscles and our spirits. There's a prayer walk outside in the parking lot that you can come and do at your leisure. People outside of the church grounds are showing up on each other's porches with donuts for Sunday morning coffee hour. They're delivering the donuts to one another and trying to make those connections that we so long for. So my charge to you today is to think about those things in your life that you can do safely, that you can do in a social distancing manner, that you can do that will recharge your soul, that will recharge your batteries, that will bring you back some joy, some life, some spirit, and bring a new spring to your step. So I send you out today with the example of Jesus, where Jesus did those things that he needed to do to recharge, to reconnect with God. And he went out into nature. He went to the garden and he prayed. Peace be with you, and I miss you all, and I look forward to the times when we can see each other face to face. Blessings this day.